Wow.
The best we can. It's early. So today, very informal chat, guys. And what we use here is this thing called Slido, but it's a pretty small audience today, so we'll just talk to everyone. But yeah, we try and limit the Q&A until the end. Pete, thank you very much for coming. You have to speak up a little bit because we're without the microphones today, but can you give me a little bit of background on yourself? What was your education? And you from Hungary, right?
Yeah, Budapest. Central Europe, Eastern Europe.
Eastern Europe. Tell me about growing up in Hungary and what your education was.
Education. I went to, that time we have something like computer high school. So I learned how to write code when I was 4. I learned how to write code at 12, but I went to a high school when we built computers. And when I was 14, that was 77 plus 14 is 91. Is that true? That time people believed that even Hungary can build computers and we will have big factories building computers. It was a wrong idea.
Well, hold on, I've got one question from our friend developer Steve. He said, what was your first computer?
My first computer was
geek out on that a little bit.
So here is the truth. My father built a computer. So it was based on Z80 processor, CPU, and he smuggled the processor from the United States because before 1990 there was a so-called COCOM list, so we couldn't import high-tech from the United States to the ex-Soviet era.
Do I want to know how he smuggled it in? Do I want to know how he smuggled it in?
Yeah, it was in a truck.
No.
Well,
he smuggled it out of the US.
Yeah.
Into Hungary.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So, and they built, because in the Eastern European or Central, we like to call it Central European, but it's Eastern Europe era, the big thing was before the 90s that you built your own computer because we couldn't get the American computer. So that was my father. When I was 6, my job was to copy the games from books into the computer. I didn't really get it. I remember that there was a line saying that if something then go to, it was basic. I don't know if you know basic, but if something then go to 620. And I asked my father, what is this? And he said, if this is true, then we go to 620. And I asked, why shouldn't be everything true? I mean, we should not lie. So I left out from the code between the condition and 620, and it never worked, of course. So that was how I learned copy-pasting code, basically. Anyway, fast forward, I went to university. I studied engineering, but that's the electric engineering because I didn't have good enough grades to get to the computer science university.
Sorry, so your dad, he was an entrepreneur himself, by the sounds of it?
Yeah, later. You couldn't be an entrepreneur in Hungary before 1990, right? There was no such thing as your own business there. State-owned everything. So, but that's a different story. But they started a business around 90s or late 80s. And the big business that time was that you import computer parts, you create computers or construct your own computer and you sell it, right? That was the big thing, the PC era, the XT, or I didn't even remember how. So that was their business. So yes, the answer is yes. I'm coming from an entrepreneur family. We never thought about that this is entrepreneurship. That word itself didn't really exist in Hungary that time. So we started to call such thing as entrepreneurism around the 90s.
So yeah, so you've always been around computers, always loved computers.
Yeah, when I was 18, I knew only one thing. I didn't want to work with computers.
Okay.
I wanted to work with people. I don't know, so from 14 to 18 years, I studied computer, and I knew I didn't want to work with computers. So
what did you do?
I wanted to be a teacher that time, and a musician, of course, as everybody, right?
Was it rock and roll? Or what kind of musician?
Blues and things like that. I played in a blues band for a week.
What happened?
They fired me. I was not good enough. We don't talk about these things.
So the band didn't quite work out. What was next?
So I studied engineering. At the same time, I studied to be a teacher because I really wanted to be a teacher. And the first year at the university, that's a silly story. But first year of the university, my friend came to me and he said, "Hey, here is a very interesting subject or class you can take. It's called sociology, and guess what? You can smoke cigarette on the seminarium, so in the classroom." We are 1990 or 96. I don't know how was smoking here in 1996, but people smoke cigarette on the university, and it was like, okay, let's take this class. And somebody came and the teacher and talk about Freud and Weber and sociology. And I'm coming coming from a technical high school, that was, oh, this is cool. We talk about people and we read books like philosophy. Anyway, so I started working with this guy, and the projects, what we did was creating databases of historical data about media technology. Because the big idea is, or still idea, is that that media technological innovations can change society. And I met with this idea when I was 20, and from 20 to 30, I worked with media technology, and then I graduated from the school. I was a Java developer for a big media company, and I went back to the university and I joined the interdisciplinary social research department when engineers, sociologists, psychologists work together on the field, what I call the soft science of wired, or the hard science of wired, like how technology can change society from Thomas Edison or going back, and so I was really into communication. And when I was 27, 28, so my first job was my first real job was writing Java code for a year, and then I went back to the university, and at the same time I did my PhD in AI. We didn't call AI that time, we just called machine learning. It was not AI, it was just machine learning, natural language processing. At the same time, I was the engineer on the social science department. So I really enjoyed interdisciplinary science for 6 years. And then we had the idea, what if we start an innovation lab? Innovation lab with a friend, Adam, who is later co-founder of Prezi. And the idea was that, what if because creating technology is so easy today, and it was easy 10 years ago. So creating apps before iPhone, so we are before iPhone, creating apps on Nokia phone, it was available. And the idea was, what if we invite technologists, economists, designers, so again, this interdisciplinary, today we call it cross-functional, but that time we called it interdisciplinary, students, we lock them in a room and we say, there are 3 rules, or 4. 1, it must be something around communication, right? Because communication connects people, communication can solve the real problems of humanity. 2nd, you must collaborate. So 15 students in an innovation lab, you can work on anything, but you have to find 2 contributors. 3rd, in 3 months, we are organizing an exhibition, and you must be ready. Go. And that was the innovation lab we started. It's Kitchen Budapest. And in a year, it became pretty famous because in 4 exhibitions, we did, 30 projects like this. Today, it should have been called, or would have been called...
Accelerator.
Yeah, accelerator. And
But before the accelerator.
Yeah, it was before accelerator. And one of that project was Prezi.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So you got in there with the students and did your own, or? I thought you were teaching these guys. You
You don't teach these guys. You just force them to work.
So
encourage. This is the right word.
So, these teams from different diverse backgrounds, and then these kind of constraints in almost like a brief. These are the criteria.
Yeah.
And you produced the first version of Prezi.
Yeah, we started. So how Prezi started is, so I have Adam, a co-founder, who is a designer, architect, never built anything useful as an architect, but an artist doing these crazy things. And even in 2001 or 2, he presented his projects as you drew something on a whiteboard and you, well, okay, look at this and that, right? It's simple. Like you have Post-its on a whiteboard and they say, oh, this is my first project and this is how the things connect. So, and the pitch, today we would call the pitch of Kitchen Budapest was made by him. And it was amazing, like zoom in, zoom out. I said, oh, wow. And I'm a university assistant professor. I was invited to give a talk to Hungarian T-Mobile, a big company. Old style telecom companies are the least innovative companies on the earth. Maybe train is worse. And I wanted to give them a talk about, I hope we don't publish this now.
Yeah. We are.
I wanted to give them a talk in 2007, like how is Google is going to disrupt the advertisement market, right? That was my message. I really wanted them to understand. So I asked them, hey, what is the tool you are using for these amazing presentations? Because I would like to use that. I was a teacher, so I gave a lot of lectures, so I knew how painful slides can be, or not painful, it just doesn't fit your ideas. When you don't fit the slides don't fit your ideas, then it's a nightmare. So he said, there is no such thing as a tool. I'm drawing my presentation, not by hand, but with Flash CS2 or something like that. A tool created for designers. Terrible tool for non-designers, because if you want to draw arrow, you line, select, mirror.
Flash, I remember.
Yeah. Things like that. So it was a really, really painful experience to create a presentation. And the result was amazing. 100 people in the audience, and I told them, oh, Google is the new thing, and it's going to disrupt your business, advertising. And they got it. So I felt, oh, wow, this is amazing. I would like to have a tool available for me. Who cares about business and startup? Just for me, so I can create presentations like this. So we started to write a code. The first idea was that it should be just an extension to a graphical software, right? I don't know if you saw Prezi ever. You did, good. So the first idea was that we take an open source graphical software like GIMP, nobody really knows, and we add as an extension, like a menu item to the open source software, so you can zoom in and zoom out. The big innovation behind Prezi is that to be able to create a 2.5D presentation, you need your own authoring tool. The end result is Prezi. This is what we want, but we have to create a tool. And since then, 80% of the company is working on enabling people like you or me to create presentations, the amazing presentation. That's the end result, and we have to work on this tool. So, and the innovation was that to create zooming presentation, you need a zooming editor itself. So we couldn't use Adobe products and an extension. anyway, so we started writing the code in 2007. At the same time, we started the innovation lab. So imagine 15 students, designers, everybody is doing a project. We are doing a project. It was an amazing year, and Prezi was accelerated by this community. So this is how we started the company.
So when did, so I imagine that from there, people started coming to you and say, I want to use this particular product. How did it kind of spin out into, 75 million users?
Yeah, this is how it happened. And 1 and 2 users and 4. So thanks God, Prezi is an easy business, right? If I'm using a presentation and it's kind of cool, you all know. You will ask me. So people, even today, people ask me, what is the tool you are using? Sorry, that one. That's Prezi me. Anyway, but 2008, 9, if you use Prezi, everybody recognizes and people walk to the present and what is that? So it's the word of mouth marketing really work. We of course we invest in marketing, but for us the best marketing is to create a product people love. Because if people love the product, people use the product. If people use the product, other people see the product, so it works. So in the beginning, we didn't really invest in marketing, and even today we don't really invest in, of course we have Facebook campaigns and things like that, but that's just a minority of. Oh, that's great.
It's good. We like picking that up on the audio.
Yeah, so what we did in 2008 is I'm writing the code. Imagine Prezi, have you ever used it? It can be annoying, right? I know, because I'm working on it. But without undo, there was no undo. I was the one who wrote the first, and undo technically a big challenge. And you create something, you delete accident, and there is no undo button. That was for the first 2 years of Prezi because we couldn't solve that. So, or there was, and what happened, friends called me, oh, I'm creating my presentation and I need this and I would like to insert a picture. Okay, now you can. I would like to do this and that. Now you can. So this is how we created. Today it's called agile software development. We didn't know that time that this is agile software. We are doing what people need. This is a big thing in software industry now, that you create things what people need. But basically this is what we want.
Can you please talk about the scale of the business side itself from, the small group of consumers here in Budapest to becoming this global organization, and maybe touch a bit on venture capital, how you grew it out?
Yeah, so we launched the product as a closed beta test in 2008. So before that we had 100 users, our friends. From 2008 you could register. It was closed beta test, and I think we had a couple of thousand users, maybe 10,000 users. And it was just word of mouth and Twitter. So people liked us on Twitter.
So it's still a very global audience, even though
we had, at the beginning, we could spot the tipping points. Like, I remember a guy from California, it's called the Institute for the Future, who visited Budapest and somehow came to Kitchen Budapest, to the innovation lab, and learned about Prezi, and he shared his experience on his blog. Plus 1,000 users, great. So we doubled the user base. 2009 April, TechCrunch covered us. That was the last time when I could recognize TechCrunch in Google Analytics, because now if TechCrunch covers us, it's just a noise in Google Analytics. But in 2009, it was a big thing.
What kind of impact did it have?
10,000 more registered users or things like that. So I think in 2010, September, we hit 1 million users, and then 2 million, and then 5, and then 10, and now we are at 75. So I would call it organic growth.
Right. In terms of
exponential organic growth.
how did the business itself?
Oh, venture capital.
Yeah, and did you start setting up satellite offices?
Yeah. So we are in 2009. Adam and me are co-founders. 2008, and we knew that this must be something called startup. We didn't know too much about startup. 2008, there was one conference about startups in Budapest. I don't know how was the startup scene here in 2008. So we didn't know about equity and share and drag along and tag along and seed fund and VC. I was a scientist, he was an artist. So
you had an online business.
Yeah. And I learned business from my great grandma who had a hardware shop, and the business model is still our business model is make more money than your cost. Then it works. I mean, this is what I think about business. So I called a friend, Péter, who is a Hungarian, born and raised in Sweden, and I guess that time working in New York. He was the only one I knew that time who knew anything about startups. So I called him, hey, we have this, what do you think? In 2 weeks, he moved to Budapest, worked for us worked on Prezi for free for a year. So he joined as the third co-founder to help us to create a startup or a business. So he's the CEO today. That was the story in 2008. And he said, okay, we must go to market. It's not enough to have the tool. We were really interested in the tool, how people create present. He said, we must go to market. We must charge people or have a income. We cannot raise money or anything, especially with this accent from Budapest in Europe or in Western Europe or in the United States. You cannot raise money without a working business, right? So in 2009, March, we started to sell what is today called the Prezi desktop product. And we invented an amazing business model which helped us to develop for 6 or 7 years. Is that I call it the Robin Hood business model or freemium model. We realized that there are two kinds of people. One who would never ever pay for any software, the students and teachers and NGOs, and not just in Eastern Europe, here as well. And people who like to pay for software if it's a good investment for them. These are the businesses. How can we make difference between business and student? They love to share their content. They hate to share their content. So we call it, you pay for privacy, right? So if you don't, or the mafia model, if you don't pay, we will publish your content in Google. This is not how we tell on the website, but this is what basically happening. So in a month, we created Prezi Desktop, thanks to Flash and the technology we had. And we put on the website and a PayPal button. And I told Peter, the co-founder, nobody would pay for this. In 10 minutes, we got 150 euros, because that time we charged in euros. So we started, we went to a bar to celebrate. And then we had that rule that when we have a company party, we drink as much we make during the party. And that time we had a 3 years long license, so that was 300 euros. And that time I got a text to my phone when somebody paid, because why would ever anybody pay for a software? This is what we thought. And we were in a party and somebody bought it for 300 euros. That was a big party. And since then, that's the organic growth and being cash flow positive. Since then, we do the same, basically.
How big are the parties now?
We have 250 people, and we can invite some. But if you make money, as my great-grandma would have said, you can have parties, right? So 2009, going back, no parties. let's do business. We launched the product April. I married in the same month. So it was a great month, 2009 April. And we wanted to raise money. We almost ran out of money. That's another story I can tell. And we got an email from Sunstone Investment, which is a Danish investor company. Like, do you guys have enough fund? And we said, oh, maybe we should talk. Maybe. We didn't have any money, right? So, of course. What happened is that they wanted to invest in another company, and during the due diligence process, they checked if they had a competitor, and so they recognized there is Prezi. They checked what people tell about Prezi on Twitter, and they said, oh, we should invest in this company, not in that company. And that was one of the best decisions. So we closed the investment in 3 months, I don't know, in the summer, and we used that money to open an office in San Francisco. So from Budapest, we opened the office in San Francisco. Why? Because US is a big market. They are pretty good in presentation, or obsessed with presentation. Homogeneous market, and communication technology usually comes from the west to the east, and we had to accept that, especially with this accent, right? You have to accept that people like to adopt communication technology coming from the US and not this direction. So we opened the office there, and Silicon Valley was an amazing school for us. I mean, this is what I think about Silicon Valley. You should go there, learn, get the mindset, and then you can go anywhere to build your business. And nowadays, with this kind of events and organization like Startup Grind, maybe you don't even have to go there. You can learn the same knowledge. But 2009, if you wanted to build a startup, you went there to understand. So we opened the office in San Francisco. It was a flat.
Well, tell me about that, right? Because everyone kind of sees that as Mecca and stuff, but I imagine you can get lost with everyone else trying to go for glory. How did you like get a foothold in San Francisco, or get the word out in San Francisco? What sort of that?
Yeah. I mean, look, this is like a computer game. You always level up. First, you have friends who can. I mean, you should always have friends who can help here and now, right now, and then maybe a month later, you need different friends. That's tough. I mean, you need different friends and you need different advisors. And so having Sunstone investing in Prezi, that opened some doors, and we had access to some European companies. And then we went to San Francisco, and slowly we built a social network. First, we didn't really need it. We didn't really need money at that time, because we built a cash flow positive business, as my great grandma would have said. If you have money, that's the best time to raise money, right? So we had time to slowly build a social network, and we built a product what people loved and used, and it was part of the hype, and new startups use Prezi to pitch to VC. So VC says, what is this? Oh, this is Prezi. Well, they check what is Prezi. So it's slowly, not so slowly, but continuously, we build a social network, and then we had new and new friends and advisors, and so we closed the first American investment 2011 from Excel. It's a very, very amazing investor company backing small things like Facebook, Dropbox, Slack. So when you get to that club, then, oh, okay, now we can learn. That's the time to really learn. Okay, maybe my great-grandma was a great businesswoman, and now we can learn how to build this kind of business. So scaling up. And then 2014, 3 years later, we closed the investment with Spectrum, which is more a growth stage investor. If you know SurveyMonkey, for example, they are backing SurveyMonkey.
So how important was, we, from all the people I've interviewed, we talk a lot about venture capital, and we talk about, seems to be a common theme about we were lucky that we got the right venture capitalist for us.
We are not lucky, we work really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, you are not lucky to have your wife and husband. You work really hard.
Sure, sorry.
I mean, you are dating.
Yeah.
You have self-awareness. You know who you would like to work with and who you don't. So Excel and Spectrum were not the first. So it was not like, and even not Sunstone was the first. So, okay, you accept the first money. You don't, basically, you should not raise money. It's not about money. You should have co-owners, right? And you don't want to share Prezi, or I don't want to share Prezi with anyone just because they have money. That's not the point. The point is that we are going to build a business together. And with some people, I would like to build business together, and with some people, I don't want to. So
sounds like Excel, for example, was a good fit. They got what you're trying to do, and they were a good partner. You dated them, and it was good. What kind of doors open when you team up with Excel?
What kind
of doors open when you teamed up with a big venture capital firm like Excel? What kind of learning occurred? How did you?
Example, VP of Infrastructure Engineering of Facebook became an advisor of Prezi, and me and engineers from Budapest could call him, like how to solve. I mean, the scaling is a big technology challenge, right? So we had terrible outages and how to solve technical problems. And then we could call the VP of Infrastructure Engineering of Facebook and ask how they do and what is his experience. And this is something you cannot get on events like this, or especially not in Budapest, right? Because there's not too many companies having 70 million users, and I don't know, we are in the top 100 biggest website, or maybe 200, I don't know. But my point is, at that point, you must have friends who have the same problems, yeah, and that's why you need being in the club. So, other example, Dropbox, again from engineering, but I could tell marketing or sales and other topics as well mentioned. Prezi has a Windows app, a Mac app, iPhone, and Android. It's a terrible thing. This is not what you would like to do, especially if I care about how people create presentations and I have to work on Android issues, like how to solve that. So we went to Dropbox or Spotify in Europe. So when you have this network of people who share the same problems, it's just easier.
I'll take a few questions real quick. Glad everyone's using the app there. A couple of questions for Pete here while we go. All right, I'm going to keep going. Yep.
The closed beta test that you talked about, was there any big part of the product that you built that you thought was great that in the closed beta test just people didn't like and you were surprised that they just didn't like it in use?
Yeah, I can tell a recent story. Last year, 2 years, maybe you can check on the internet. Prezi Nutshell, it was an amazing product we launched a year ago, and in 6 months, we just closed. The product is how you can create a casual Prezi. We call it casual Prezi. So you take your phone, you create 3. I want to tell a story that Startup Grind was a great event. So this guy with this audience, and I gave this, I don't know, you take 3 pictures, and it generates a small video with a slow motion, and you can even add text. So it's almost like a Prezi on mobile, quick and dirty Prezi. We loved the product. we even had executive strategy meeting proving that it should work. It didn't. So the problem is that people didn't really like it or didn't really use it. So the retention rate was really, really low. So we killed in 6 months.
It's just because it was ahead of its time.
No.
That's all it was.
It was just an idea what we loved and nobody else. And I can tell several ideas what I like and nobody else likes. So,
well, how do you balance that up? You know, the features that you think people want. Are you running focus group versus the people that people ask for that may not resonate with the rest of your audience?
Yeah. There is one rule in product management: never ask people what they want, right? And it's well known. You should listen to people. This is something what I guess entrepreneurs don't, or startups don't really get. Like, what does it mean to really listen to people? Because you have the best idea and you think it's the best idea, so it must be good. And even this is the lean startup thing, like, test your idea. Why don't you listen to people? Anyway, my grandma was a dentist, and she said that, yeah, I have some entrepreneurs, dentists, and she said, sometimes you have to go to the market to remind people that they should go and visit the dentist. So when there was not enough client, she just had a walk in the district that reminded people that they should visit the dentist. Why I'm saying this, I don't know. Yeah. So if you have connection with real people, then you might have some idea of how to help them. We are basically not building a product. We are building a service or solution, or we would like to help people who would like to tell their stories, right? So we go there, we see them, we have charter customers, we do a lot of user tests, like when we show, and so we do everything. We do data analysis, and of course we have like mission-driven. Like if you talk about VR, nobody tells you that I would like to use a VR to create presentation, but I still believe how cool it would be if a presentation is like you all have your VR thing on it and say, okay, here is what happened last year, but next year we will do this and that, right? So having presentation in the spatial, in a room, really using the spatial, meaningful spatial relationship would be something interesting. This is you cannot ask the users if they really want. That's your idea. You have to.
Is this something you're working on? That's a yes.
Yeah, I mean, everybody is working on that. I mean, having a prototype is easy. So yes, we have some crazy prototypes.
Cool. So just on, you touched. I'm always interested to see how entrepreneurs, and you're one of the standouts. Obviously, how do you scale culture? How do you ensure that you've got this winning team? But now how many employees in how many countries? How did you keep that DNA?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that you should not really preserve culture. I mean, culture is what people are doing in the organization. It's not what is in the culture deck, not what is printed on the T-shirt. And culture should change. And what is culture? If I see one person having passive-aggressive comment to the other one, do I walk there and I say, maybe if you change your language, then we could love each other easier, or things like that? Is this culture? I think so, right? So I think how I behave. So one, how you behave, that's the first culture. Second, how visible you are as a leader, because it's so easy to hide in the boardroom and having strategic discussions in front of a whiteboard. And people won't see you, and then you feel, that the culture is declining. you just should be part of the team, and you should just behave how you think you should behave and how you think others should behave. And I think that's culture. There's one thing about startups, the growth, which is painful. And growth means change, and we are not really used to change. If you think about the system, the social system we are living, like families and societies, they don't change. Families change, and then we have a big thing, like the celebration of birth or death. But that happens a couple of times in your life. Societies don't change. If there is 10,000 immigrants coming to this country, everybody freaks out, right? We have 1 million immigrants coming to Europe in a country of 300 million. This is 1 from 300, and we all freak out, right? Because societies don't really change. I mean, they change, but not like from a day to other day. Startups are built to change every day. That's why it's interesting. And here is the truth, or a story. We had a summer intern 2 years ago. He was employee or intern, I don't know, Prezi member number 254, say something. And after his internship, he was a high school student. He said, I asked him, how was it? It was great, I learned a lot. What do you think about company? It's a very, 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 very nice culture, he said. It's like a family, and I wish you could preserve this culture. He was the 254th people who worried about the culture of Prezi, because when a new people joined, said, oh, it's going to be something different. People are so afraid of changing organization, and at the same time, we are building them to be able to change. So I just don't really want to preserve the culture. I mean, we should like each other.
That's it. That's the just an essence.
I mean, what is Prezi culture? I mean, I can tell that I like when people are nice with each other, and I don't like assholes.
Yeah.
Is this part of the culture? Yes. Some people say that it's great in Prezi that there are no assholes.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have a rule. We have a rule in hiring. You can, everybody has a veto right. So who is involved in hiring, everybody has a veto right. I just don't hire someone if you don't like her or him. Second, we always ask this question, would you, oh, this is good.
Yeah,
What would you do if on Budapest airport you are flying to San Francisco, because we do this Budapest-San Francisco flight frequently, you recognize that this new employee is sitting next to you. So you are standing in the line and comes, oh, hello, hi, I'm the new employee and I'm sitting next to you. If you feel that you should change your seat, just don't hire. If you will, oh, that's going to be the best flight to San Francisco, that's 14 hours. So if you don't want to spend 14 hours with someone, just don't hire. Third, I really would like to hire people whom I can solve conflicts, because in a startup, I call this an anxiety-driven development. I mean, there is always a crisis, right? Crisis-driven development. So we have a lot of conflicts. With some people, I like to solve conflicts. With some people, I don't like to solve. And I feel at the beginning that maybe I would not invest time in solving conflicts with you. We don't work together. So I think we are just simple.
That's great. Take one more question. Yeah.
So for me, this was actually two Genesis stories, and the other founding story that I heard and want to hear more about is the Innovation Lab. Is that still a thing? What did the university decide to do with that?
Innovation Lab?
Yeah.
So first, university said that we couldn't open the Innovation Lab in the university, because they said in 2007 that this interdisciplinary internet thing is not science enough. People make wrong decisions. So it was an independent sponsored by Hungarian Telecom, and it's still alive, and now it's accelerator lab, startup accelerator, something.
On that, you're quite involved in a number of social things back in Hungary. You want to talk about something that you're passionate about?
Yeah, of course. My recent project is building schools for kids, children.
Just in Hungary? Where are you doing this?
The more I talk to Australian people, the more I think that maybe you have the same problems. And the problem is that education was invented 250 years ago. It's totally outdated. We teach kids what the iPhone knows, right? Memorizing, useless facts, no critical thinking, no problem-solving skills, and then from when young adults go to the workplace from 23 to 30, they are basically learning what they could have learned, right? We organizing agile conferences. I was a speaker there, and we talk about how people should collaborate. Great. This is at age 12. You can learn, and you should do, right? Collaborate on things. So, and when I ask parents, educators, teachers, how education should look like, we agree in 80%, and we do 0 in schools, right? So the big idea is that I take teachers, open-minded parents with children, a building, I put them together. As I said, I like to force people to collaborate, so I lock the door, and I tell to the community, you should do whatever you think is the best today so that children are going to be happy in 2040. And always think about what's happening in 2040. And that's the great thing about 2040, nobody knows, right? So what we know that changes faster and faster. You must adapt. Your learning skill is more important because the jobs you are going to have in 2014 doesn't really exist today. 50% of the jobs, maybe 50% here, won't exist anymore, right? Because of AI, because of transportation changes. And I let the teachers make their own decisions. In a startup way, we would say autonomous cross-functional teams. But they know how to do that. We just don't let them because the government doesn't trust, the parents doesn't trust, the local community don't trust the teacher. So what if we just let them do what they can? So this is a school, and it's in a network solving their bureaucratic problem, like accounting should be not a teacher's problem, right? So how can we give them all or provide them all the boring stuff, zero administration? Why do we expect teachers to do administration? And so it's a scalable school network, because my idea is that the traditional education system is just too big, too conservative, nobody really cares, so it's harder to change than build a new one. And if we build a new one, I don't know how was the critical mass here, the bicycle movement. Do you have this here in Melbourne? But do you know what I'm talking about? In Budapest, we had the largest critical mass event in Europe. In 5 years, percentage of people who were cycling in the city went from 1% to 30% in 10 years. So when I said societies can change, I was wrong. We just don't recognize the change. And the critical mass happened, that's hence the name. A critical mass of people said, no for cars. We have to change how cities works. Bicycle might be an option, right? And then we forced governments to change. It's a bottom-up movement. And I can see this in feminism, in transportation, in startup businesses. It's always a bottom-up movement, and politicians are just followers. because they care about election, right? So if there is a critical mass saying this is what we need in the society, politicians will follow. And this is what I would like to do with education. First, build a critical mass of people who said, no, I don't want to teach my children facts what Siri knows. I don't want to have written exams of totally useless things. No, this is not what I want to my children. And when we have the critical mass, we can change the public education, because this is still a problem of society. This is not something should be solved by private money. So, but private money can be used to build these bottom-up movements.
So you didn't have enough headaches at work? You wanted to take on these massive problems as well?
Yeah, Prezi is ready. No. I have a 6-year-old, so somebody must do something. I mean, there are great schools everywhere in the world, and there is always a really long queue for all that schools. So the idea was that we need more. Yes, I have headaches. No headaches, challenges. But this is, as I said, I started as a teacher, so I'm just going back to my roots.
Last question.
I'm really curious, is your 6-year-old going to learn to code, and at what age? Because I have 3 boys, and I'm like, well, Siri can probably learn to code soon, so how should they learn? Every kid in India learns to code by age 12, so.
Why not? So, why not? There are some iPad apps to do something like coding, but it's like a game. And yes, we played that game. Maybe I played the game. We played together. So yes, I think so. Especially my daughter, who is 3 years old. She's more a nerd than my son. Yes, I believe coding is the digital literacy, and everybody, even today, so people here who don't know how to write code could learn, should learn. Why do we expect engineers to have communication skills, and why do we expect engineers to have social skills, and then we can't expect people to have some coding skills? Even if it's a Visual Basic script in Excel, good. I mean, this is our connecting APIs, right? So you can do today, coding is not like 20 years ago. 20 years ago, coding was computer science. Today is more like playing Lego, right? So you connect. And I'm not saying it's wrong. This is the right thing, because the computer science 20 years ago was over-sophisticated something. I almost have a PhD in that, so I know. So yes, you can play with robots. You can. There's amazing LittleBits. Do you know LittleBits? It's like little bits, small elements, and you can build electric circles. But it's a toy for kids at age 10 or 8. So there is a lot of game today for kids, which is like coding. I don't think there is such thing as coding or in 10 years. We just will use and connect things, and then they will start working, and then we build a machine, and then our kids are going to build things what we used to call AI 20 years ago, right? So, yes.
I want everyone back on their feet, and a big thank you for Péter for giving up his time here, please.